I guess Muna is facing some technical issues to log in, but I think in the interest of everyone's time, we can start the session. She can join us in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have panelists and participants who have joined this session from across the globe and from different time zones. So welcome everyone to the Krantii monthly webinar series in association with Empowered Parents Forum and SoFin. I'm Jasmine Kumar, an educator, author, and parenting coach, and I shall be moderating this lovely session today on the issue that most of the people across the globe are facing today: the impact of lockdown on the mental health of parents as well as the children. Coronavirus pandemic, it has come down heavy on all of us, isn't it? Not just the adults, but even the kids are at a risk of mental health problems resulting from this pandemic. Now, to understand how to deal with mental health issues and how to tell if your child's mental health is suffering too during this lockdown, we bring to you a global panel of women today from 5 different countries who are powerful coaches, wonderful mothers, and most gorgeous souls. Welcome, everybody. I'm honored to introduce this eminent panel, starting with Sophia Casey from USA. She is the CEO of Sophia Casey Enterprises. Her extensive work of more than 30 years, I would say, she has helped the leaders to get transformative results, to catapult their businesses and organizations to the next level. Sophia also served as the director of First Impressions for a task force for the former Vice President of the United States. Welcome, Sophia. We have Lynn Hope Thomas from UK. She is the CEO of LHT Consulting. Lynn is a change mentor, author, and driven by her personal challenges, experiencing even loss in her life. She studied with Dr. John Martini and is trained to even help and guide the leaders through effective transformations. Her books include her personal breakthrough stories in collaboration with 17 women across the globe, and she was also recently featured in the Secret to Wealth with Brian Tracy. Welcome, Lynn. We have Sue Kerr joining us from UK. She is a mental well-being mindset specialist and NLP practitioner and founder of Fearless Live More. I just love this touchline. She worked with the adults and the young people to empower and lead them to build the emotional and the mental resilience and to the pressures of the outside world today, and coach them to fearlessly lead their life happier and meaningful. Welcome, Sue. We have Muna, who would be joining us shortly. She's from Nigeria. She's the founder of Gazelle Business Solutions. She's an award-winning author, business coach, and a life mentor. In her academy, they have trained over 2,000 Nigerian youths, and she is known to be a startup doctor for her work in helping smaller businesses operate more optimally. We have Debbie Lee, who's joining us from South Korea. She's an author, she's a coach, she's a creative director of Heartener. Debbie has published 5 books in her almost 20 years of career life, as a global investment and market entry consulting through the organizations such as HSBC, Danish Foreign Ministry, European Union Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Debbie. Now, before we start this session, I would like to invite Wing Commander Satyam Kushwaha, who is the founder of Krantii, a veteran fighter pilot and an awarded satellite imagery analyst for his pioneering contribution into the geointelligence domain. He has also represented India at the United Nations Global Geospatial Information Management. Welcome, Satyam. May I request you to please say a few words to the panelists as well as the participants who have joined us today.
Thank you. That was a fairly generous introduction. Good evening, ladies, and welcome to all of you. We are really very honored to have you all board here on the Krantii Manthan platform. Now, Krantii came into force almost about, Krantii came into force about 4.5 years back, wherein we were trying to crowdsource ideas for improving the policy spectrum in this country. And since then, we have grown from one group to about 60 groups on WhatsApp, which deal with various themes relating to nation building and societal development. And as we were grappling with COVID, we thought that we should bring some value addition with the kind of skills that we have and see how we can impact the society in a other than just our team discuss and has been for kind enough to provide us that spirit which allows us to roll out this program. We are supported at the back end with a fantastic team of our members, relentless efforts. This to just thank
Thank you, Satyam. And to all our global participants watching this session live, our chat windows are now open for you to post your questions, and our panelists shall address to them post this session. So let's get our power-packed panel discussion started, ladies. Soon after the emergence of COVID-19, not only it has caused, a number of deaths in China, but rapidly spread to other countries as well. Now, may I request each panelist to kindly speak for 2 minutes on how this pandemic has impacted, the psychology of people in their own country. Maybe please start with Sophia Casey.
Well, I can imagine. Thank you so much. And thank you also for having me here. I'm so honored to be here with all of you. I know a number of you, and I'm truly inspired by the work that you all do. I'm sure you've seen in the news that the United States has quite a bit going on. We actually have some of the largest coronavirus cases happening every day, unfortunately. And I would say that it's affecting us on all levels. Obviously, certainly professionally, but also the reason for this conversation today personally as well. I can only share from my point of view and from my client's point of view that the toughest impact is around navigating the deaths that have happened because of coronavirus. And how do you be with that? And how do you grieve through that? At the same time, while you're at home, maybe you didn't work at home at the time, and now your whole life has gone virtual. And so, what I've been doing here personally and professionally is allowing myself some compassion. And what I share with my clients every single day and every chance I get to share with them is to also encourage them to allow themselves some compassion. We are in a new normal. And what I notice a lot, Jasmine, is that me included, but we're trying to take our normal life, take our normal life and fit it in this new normal. And it's just not working. I believe that this is a call to action for all of us globally to create something new and to create what we want to actually have. And so it has been a challenge, as you said. And I'm encouraged, though. I really am encouraged that we all get to witness and be part of creating something new. So that's what I'm holding on to every day, that I get to be a part of that.
I take this word. Thank you so much, Sophia. I love the word compassion that you used. It's not just a word, but it has a deeper meaning, connecting lives, connecting human beings. So moving on to Sue. What do you have to say for this? Sue, you are on mute. Can you unmute yourself, please?
How?
Yes, you're on mute.
Am I?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Is that good?
Lord and
okay. Technology. I know a lot about mindset, zero about technology. Must do better. Sorry about that. Okay. Firstly, I agree with most everything that Sophia said. The word that sprung to mind when she was talking about how our lives have changed, is that for me personally, and certainly for many people that I work with and have come into contact with during COVID, is our lives have actually gone vertical. We are, because we have to stay within a confined area, by definition, our worlds become smaller. And I think the difference here for me that I've evidenced in the UK is that many of us are seeing that that vertical living. So like I work from home, I live with my family, and the places that we've been able to visit have been confined within certain distances. Everything about it's got smaller, and yet in so many ways, for me, the world's got so much bigger. You know, how many opportunities do we get to talk to people on in 5 different countries and continents within the same time frame, although they're in different time zones? And in this country, for me, I think we fall into one of two camps. We fall into the camp that can see the bigger picture for what it is, even though we are vertically living and we feel confined in many ways, or we fall into the camp that are completely devastated by what they perceive to be their loss of liberty, their loss of freedom, their loss of family because they can't be with them in times of crisis and or joy, and all of these combined together in a great big melting pot of if we're not very careful, of division. So for me, and our mental health or our mental well-being, for all of us, without exception, is the commonality. It's the thing that are driving us, and they're driving our choices with regard to how we see the situations that we're in. There was a campaign in this country a little while ago that said you're not being made to stay at home. You're being made to be safe at home. That, two sides to every story every time. But I think the danger is that when our worlds become smaller, and it's through lack of control on our part, then we fall into the realms of worrying about things that are way beyond our control, particularly if we pay homage to the evening news bulletins, fear-driven, crisis-driven, and all that business. And I think the media, for certain in this country, have to take some responsibility in the decline, in the obvious decline, I should say, in our mental well-being, because some people are clearly struggling more than others, and I think it's all down to our perception. But as with everything, because we're individual, the things that I see as to be beneficial, wearing masks, for instance, when you're out and about, some others see as an infringement of civil liberty, and we have to be careful to be able to distinguish what it is that is making somebody's mental well-being decline. Is it the fact that they are genuinely fearful for their own and their family's well-being and safety, and therefore don't know what to do, and the anxiety is rising because they don't really know what to do for the best? Or is it more a case of they're becoming cross and angry because of what is perceived to be a continued and long-term infringement of whatever it is that they want to do? And I think the thing to remember in all of that is that we all individually can only do ever what is right for us and our family, or our loved ones,
I totally
people who
agree.
are closest.
You've made such beautiful points in here that, of course, global pandemic has brought the world more closer. Look at all of us, isn't it incredible? Different time zones, and we are connecting. Somebody is in morning, somebody is having his lunch, somebody's having his evening, and there's this mama whose kids have gone to sleep, and she's still logged in to save the world and give, all her wonderful insights to make a difference. I mean, it's incredible. But then, yes, what's going on inside this little mind of ours needs to be sorted. Today morning,
Absolutely.
I was talking to somebody that, if your own cup of happiness is not empty, is empty, what are you going to give to people around, you? So beautifully said, Sue. Thank you. I move on to Lynn. Lynn, we would like to hear from you. You're on mute, Lynn. Yes. It's unmute, Lynn. You can start speaking.
Oh, you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm doing a repeat of Sue here. Okay, yeah, I mean, great points from Sophie there. And again, I agree with everything that Sue had to say. It's been an incredible journey so far here in the UK. Obviously, the number of deaths has been quite substantial. What I find quite interesting is that not too much is said about the people, the families who are suffering from those deaths and the grief that they must be going through. We don't hear of any of that in the news, nor do we hear much about some of the studies that have actually been done, where the Institute of Fiscal Studies has come up with some percentages that 70% of people are worried, 63% are very concerned about the future, and 56% are suffering from stress and anxiety. And 50%, I'm presuming these figures are out of 100, about 50% are bored. So I kind of hazard a guess that they're probably key workers who have been waiting to go down to the local pub and a bit fed up. But of concern to me is definitely the increase. There's been a 49% increase in domestic violence. In the first week alone, there were 16 deaths from domestic violence. The NSPCC, which is our child line here in England, they've had 20% increase in calls from children, and the Refuge has had a 10% increase in people turning up in those places. So, yeah, suicide rate has gone up with the unemployed. Now, the thing about a lot of this that really concerns me more is that there's a distinct socioeconomic situation. It's quite clear that areas of poverty is where the deaths are happening, because they are the most disadvantaged members of our community. And sadly, well, it's kind of come at the sort of time to raise awareness about the the Black Lives Matter, because it's incredible that the increased risk, if you're from a black or Asian, or it's just facts, and we need to start to face up to that. How are we going to make it become more equal so that the opportunities are there? So it's all, and I did a talk at WEF, I can't remember now, a couple of years ago, about poverty, because I did some studies on it, and it's quite clear that when people are kept down in poverty, the struggle for a child to get through and out of that and rise up is just practically impossible. So a lot of the problems and issues need some serious thinking and action. And one of my, because I work in corporations, it's like trying to increase their awareness and get them doing more and being more empathic towards their employees, and not thinking that they can pass it off. Like, I don't know what's happened in England, but a lot of HR departments are just hire, fire. They don't actually provide well-being services. They don't consider, and I've seen it not too long ago, a single mother of a child had got care duties, and the employer just being totally unsympathetic when half of the nation were furloughed and watching Netflix. She's struggling with a child and a key worker having to go to work. So the other aspect I've seen is there is a divide that Sue mentioned. There's the ones who are working and haven't really, they've seen all the benefits of COVID, and then you've got the ones who may have lost their jobs, not working, and no income coming in. And
I agree. Such kind of stories are coming across the globe from every country, every state, that we get to hear in newspaper and media everywhere. You talked about domestic violence. Now if I talk about India specifically, so the number of calls, on the child helpline numbers, it has increased incredibly to more than 60 to 70% more calls coming, from those poor children who are facing that domestic violence. And it really pains my heart, where the world is coming to. So we will come back and discuss about this in detail, Lynn. So I would like to hear from Debbie. Debbie, you're from South Korea. So how is the situation in the country out there? Debbie, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, yes. Yeah, okay, so Korea was one of the first countries which were affected by this coronavirus. But so far, Korea has controlled the situation, I think, fairly well. And of course, in order to do that, people and citizens really try to cooperate to government instructions, and they try to abide by all the instructions to social distancing. So as a result, the statistics on coronavirus shows fairly low number of infected patients and death in Korea. But along the way, people are really under a multiple level of stress. Because we were very, very strict. I mean, we really confine ourselves at home, and I mean, all the schools are closed, and especially those children and students, they're all online class most of the time, and they have a certain schedule to go to school. But even though students are in school, they are not allowed to mingle together, and the teachers strictly separate them. And they're supposed to eat their lunch alone without any social mingling. So, I have a daughter who is in the 11th grade in high school, and a son in the 8th grade in middle school. And they all told me that they feel being in the state of kind of like, lethargy after being, alone for such a long time. So, so I think in this pandemic situation, and even though Korea is controlling really hard of this situation, I think the loneliness is the really first element in this pandemic situation to make people mentally suffering. Even though we are so much connected online like this, still, I mean, people miss human touch and eye contact. Yeah, so of course, I really appreciate this online, connection. Without this, we would have, much suffered, mentally, and absolutely our children. So actually, I talked about this with my son the other day, that if there was no digital transformation and this kind of pandemic happened, what would happen? So this will be a total disaster. But we are connected online, so this is much better. But still, people need some human touch. Yeah.
Devi, this coronavirus pandemic, it has kind of upended the lives of people. Your schools are shut down, you're working from home, there is physical distancing. You talked about the personal touch. Of course, there is lots more that people are actually, they have to navigate through in the current situation. And especially parents, you talked about, and you're a single mother of two beautiful teenagers. I mean, it's lots for anybody to kind of navigate through. So thank you so much, Devi, for this. Moving on to Muna. So Muna, I would like to hear from you how people are in Nigeria are facing this pandemic, and how is it impacting their mental health?
Hello, Jasmine. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, loud and clear.
Oh, fantastic. It's this is one subject that is after my heart, because the truth is that even before the pandemic, a lot of families were suffering, right? In terms of the economic crisis and being an emerging economy and all of that. Like, let me take education, for instance. Before the pandemic, we were working to ensure that schoolgirls are brought back to school. So there were a lot of strategies around that. And then the pandemic happened. So you can imagine the number of students and girl child who are not in school and who will not come back to school after the pandemic. We already had that problem before the pandemic happened. Now that everybody is at home, chances are that once the pandemic is over, we would have even more number of girl children that are out of school that won't be in school. So that's one huge problem that the nation is grappling with and looking and trying to find strategies to ensure that we have our girl children back in school when school happens. Now, for parents, there's something about marriage. Like when you go to work, that's the time you have away from your spouse. That's the time you have away from the children. And some parents have taken it as their me time, time to bond with my friends, time to bond after work. They go and have a drink and all of that before they come back to the house and have to deal with the responsibilities at home. But unfortunately, with the lockdown, everybody is forced to be together in one space unendingly. Morning, afternoon, night, you're all in one space. And this has made a lot of people anxious, and the mood has been going crazy, a lot of mood swings. We have also seen in Nigeria a lot of rape cases rise from family members, especially in the northern part of the country. There are too many stories. In fact, I am a Rise Up Fellow, and in one of our groups, we had 2 rape cases, which was just a couple of days ago, reported by a community that a 65-year-old man raped a 17-year-old girl twice in Regasa, and they took her to the hospital, and an entire mess. Totally, children are suffering because of rape, because of being locked down with their family members. And it's crazy. Now look at the economic crisis in terms of the lockdown, loss of livelihoods. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of parents have lost their jobs. So you can imagine the immense pressure that is on families, especially because they have recurring costs that they must attend. You don't have any excuse. You must pay for those bills. Now, where you have lost your job due to COVID-19, what then happens? I had a lot of people reach out to me asking for palliatives, right? And I had to do personal palliatives beyond what the government was doing to help out these families. And my greatest fear was that within this period, crime also increased. We had streets that were shut down, especially in Lagos. We had streets that were shut down with hoodlums everywhere. We had private citizens who would come out at night to do vigilante just to protect their neighborhood, because people are angry, people are hungry, people are restless. They don't know what is going on. They don't understand it, and they don't see an end to it. So it's a huge, huge crisis, Jasmine, that we all have to put our heads together to see what can be done. Both government, civil society, non-governmental organizations, all of us need to come together to find a solution to help parents, especially in the emerging economy where they don't even make so much at the end of the day. We are also dealing with teachers who are out of school. Teachers on their own are not even being paid so much. Now they are not even getting anything. And these are people that are helping our children become better citizens, and who will rule us tomorrow. Now these guys are not being taken care of. So in Nigeria, the CBN has announced that they're going to pay private teachers. And in the ministry, we're also looking for ways to see how we can augment, for public school teachers. So there is a whole lot of issues around mental health that this lockdown has really caused, from psychosocial effects to girls and women who find themselves more vulnerable, the increase in gender-based violence, lots of it's immense. It's immense. So this sort of forum is a great way, for us to rub minds and see what other countries are doing and see how we can also borrow from them to make our own a much better and easier place for our citizens. Thanks, Jasmine.
You have touched down upon very, very relevant aspects, from all the aspects, emotional, psychological, and everything. And when you talked about that couples have never been, used to with staying in the same house under the same roof for 24/7. Now there are not many suppressed emotions, which are now coming out. And the saddest part is that everything is coming out in front of the children. Children are witness to the kind of argumentative discussions happening between parents, the anger, the frustration, and not many parents are even on the verge of getting separated. That's the state of affairs, and all that children are witnessing. That's the saddest part of this. So Mona, I would like to come back and discuss more on this. I believe that Sophia has another training to attend to. So I would like to first ask Sophia. Sophia, we have discussed and touched down upon this aspect that with schools being closed and parents working from home, parents today are facing so much of stress, with additional responsibilities compounded with the future uncertainties. So, what and how would you advise the parents? How can they prevent themselves from this mental breakdown to happen?
I will thank you for the question. I'll keep coming back because what keeps coming back for me is that word compassion. A lot of us as parents, we're looking out on social media, we're looking on news. We already have our preconceived notions of what a good parent looks like before we even started experiencing the pandemic, right? Already had all the pressures that we put on ourselves of what a perfect parent looks like. And so I'll keep coming to that word compassion. What if I, as a mom, actually came from compassion? Compassion for myself, yes, but compassion for my children too. So compassion for them when they don't understand that mommy's here teaching a class now, so I can't attend to your needs. But the more that we are willing, Jasmine, to be vulnerable and to dispel and break down this notion that we've built of what a perfect parent is, I think the more we allow ourselves to have compassion for ourselves, for our children, for our spouses, and for others in our countries and around the world. I also see the value of children actually seeing the real us, seeing us as parents navigate this new normal. We haven't been here before. So I find that there's value in my son, my 14-year-old son, being able to see me struggle with how do I navigate all of this. And right now I'm acting as a single parent because I have a husband who has a brain tumor and who was hospitalized. So having our son actually see, how does mom navigate that? How does dad navigate that? What are my friends saying? And actually creating this new normal in our home of, we don't know what the heck we're doing. We're taking one moment at a time and creating it as we go. We are literally flying the aircraft while we're looking at the instructions. We're doing it at the same time. And I implore and encourage parents to have compassion for yourself. And what that can look like sometimes it'll look like, great, I'm here, I'm on this wonderful in this wonderful conversation with all of you from around the world, something I love to do. It also can look like I'm laid out in the middle of my bedroom floor, crying my eyes out, screaming just from frustration and not being able to be in control. And so I just think that there's such value in, like I said, compassion, but also from the other side, just practicing vulnerability. I think that's where our strength lies. And it's not holding up this notion that, oh, being a perfect parent means I keep that away from my children. I hide that from them. Of course, we want to protect them. They're already traumatized. We don't want to add more trauma to them. But I think hiding what we're going through and what we're experiencing actually keeps them away from seeing the entire process. And so I have to keep reminding myself, let Josh see the entire process. And at the same time, being protective of him, obviously not incurring, so that he doesn't incur more trauma. But the other thing I'll put in before I have to jump off to teach is get supported. This is so supportive right now. Just like I think it was Sue who said it earlier, just being here in this conversation, talking to other moms, talking to other parents, get supported. I say that notion of I'm super mom, I threw that away. I threw that away when Josh was about 3. I'm not interested in being a super mom. I'm not interested in being a superhero. I'm just interested in being a superhuman. That's all I want to do, is be a superhuman for my child.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Very well said, Sophia. I think, if you give tags like super moms and superheroes, it unnecessarily gives more pressure onto you to perform, right? I agree that we all as parents are the role models for our children, but the way we are handling this pandemic right now at home, it could be an example of resilience, to teach to our children. So thank you so much, Sophia, for saying this. So my question goes to Lynn, adding further to what I asked Sophia. Lynn, parents often they end up taking out their emotional baggage onto the children. So how are children today getting impacted by this lockdown, with home now being their school, their playground, and also the place for entertainment too? Lynn, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Lynn.
You can. Oh, sorry. It seemed to keep pressing the button and it wouldn't unmute. Sorry, you have to remind me of the question. It was along the lines of children. How are children affected? Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Okay. So my question is that, today when children are there at home, as a parent, we often end up, taking out all our emotional baggage, our frustrations onto the children. They often end up being our punching bags to take out the frustration. So how are children getting impacted by this lockdown? And because, now they are doing their schooling at home, they are having all their entertainment at home. And they're living, in this kind of a stressful environment along with the parents. So what is the impact on children this lockdown?
I think it can be difficult for some children. Obviously, the ones where the parents are taking it out on them, that's not a good situation. And I think it all depends as well as to how much technology they've got. A lot of children will be getting lost in that technology, and that can be quite concerning. How much exercise are they getting? If they're not getting out and getting exercise, then obviously that's going to build up more anxiety within them. They could be having problems sleeping. I think I'm not a school teacher, so I don't really get to spend much time with lots of children. From my own perspective, I've a teenage daughter, and she gets the full brunt of my stress and frustration because I've been quite severely affected by the COVID. How does it impact her? She's a lot more anxious and suffering stress. I notice it because she'll be there'll be like mood swings. But what I'd say to her, I usually apologise if my behaviour has been out of order. So that she understands that, yes, I'm not a super mum. I'm just a human being who's going through a very difficult time. And I think for a lot of school teachers, most of them will be on the lookout within school for any children that are showing signs of more serious impacts. So any children that are starting to get withdrawn, children who are not taking part in social activities, children who are becoming a bit uncontrollable. I do have a very good friend who has incredible incidents happen at a primary school. So at a very young age, children will be trying to, throw chairs. They try and escape the school boundaries. And very often these are the children that are having more severe impacts in the household, and very often it will lead to calling in social services to get the support that they need to help them. But I think on the whole, in my sort of community, we're fortunate because we don't live in a city. We're not, most people have got gardens, and that's made a big difference. I think people who are in apartment blocks who couldn't get outside, that was the hardest for those people. Whereas in my area, there's a lot more people exercising than ever before. But now lockdown's releasing, they've all gone back, they've all disappeared again. But I'm out there all the time because I've got a dog and I'm out there walking. So yeah.
Thanks, Lynn. Adding on to what Lynn has just mentioned, you're also mother of two beautiful daughters. So how much do you think that are children kind of internalizing these issues and blaming themselves for this kind of a stress which is happening in their family, which is prevalent in their homes? Do you think that children are kind of making them reason for that? Mona, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, I didn't realize that was for me. Yes, so how are children internalizing the stress of COVID-19, of the lockdown? Right. For my daughters, I noticed that they became very restless, and then the way they play changed. They became a bit more physical. Like if you upset somebody, she'll lash out at you and all of that. So I have had to take away technology. Yes, because I felt it was too much. They were always online playing Roblox or was Minecraft or something. And I mean, for Roblox, you find that they have other people playing it. So I've had to restrict that to just family members. Say, okay, you can only play it with your cousins who are the same age group as you. So that has also helped them in releasing stress. And then what I tried to do was reduce the time, even TV time. And then I allowed them to have more face-to-face time with me. Even though I'm stressed, you'll find I'm sitting on a chair. They're 10-year-olds now, twins. You'll find them sitting on the same chair with me. So that human contact, that affection, they want it reinforced all the time, and I find myself also asking them, are you okay? Is anything the matter? Because you'll just find them wandering around. We live in a flat. So like Lynn said, it's difficult when you live in a flat and you don't have a garden to just walk out to. You're confined in that small space, right? It becomes very traumatizing for them. They would come and they will, walk up to me and say, Mom, I'm bored. And I'm helpless because I don't know what to do. I can't say go on TV, go on. No, there has to be. So in fact, we've resorted to introduce our local games. There's one we play with the Ludo. I have had to be very creative. They're learning Spanish now on YouTube. They're learning Mandarin. They're going back to their music instruments. I allowed their teachers to train them on Zoom. So I had to diversify what they do, and I realized that helped a lot. By the time I decreased the time they spent on technology playing games and introduced other exciting things that that they would love to do, it helped a lot to balance them. And one thing I also noticed was that, as Lynn said, the sleeping pattern became horrible. You'll find that they are 11, 12, 1 a.m. and you're telling them to sleep, and these children are looking at you and are like, where am I going tomorrow? So you find that as a parent, you have to also mentally adjust to the timing and all of that. So, I mean, it's one step at a time. Like Sophia said, we can't kill ourselves. We have to do what we can, one step at a time.
Thank you, Mona. Debbie, my next question goes to you. We were just discussing with Mona some time back that couples under the lockdown today are not used to with spending with family for 24 hours. There are suppressed emotions which are coming out in the ways that's triggering arguments, heated discussions, and some are even on the verge of getting separated, moving on to marriage. And all this since is happening in front of the children being at home. So what advice would you like to give to the parents, to handle this stress and to ensure that kids are not getting affected by it? Debbie, keep to
Oh,
yes.
Oh, okay. Do you hear me?
So there's a robot today which is kind of muting everybody. So before we speak, just check.
Yes, we have to check. Okay.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I always have a very deep communication with my children about all the things happening around my family. Before, actually, I sort of pretended that I'm always okay, and I'm always happy, and our family is going well, and everything is in line with all the good things. Just like, have you seen the movie Life is Beautiful? That's the Italian movie. Oh, yeah. So this beautiful dad, he was, he's always, entertaining his son, even though he's under this Nazi period, right? So we're under this COVID-19 period, and we're sad, and we are very anxious, and we're really worried about our future, and everything is unstable. But still, I pretended that I'm always happy and everything. So because that movie was really stuck in my head, that I have to really make our children happy. So I did that when my children were small, and I'm still doing that. But somehow I realized that they started realizing that the mom is somehow not quite right, and mom is not perfect. So my son the other day asked me that, oh, you don't have to pretend, just just relax. I know what's going on, he said. So yeah. So the advice that I can give, perhaps to myself and to others who are in the same situation, I think we, as who have said, Sophia said, perhaps like this super mom syndrome, we have to throw it away. And actually, I co-authored a book called Hygge Parenting with a Danish journalist. And when I worked on this book, I realized that this parenting approach is quite different from a different culture and different background. So in Korea, or I don't know, some in Asia, we try to fantasize our reality, but I've learned that the country like in Denmark, they sort of open quite candidly to their children, even though the children are quite small. So I learned that from that journalist. So I mean, of course, I still don't want my children to feel anxious like adults do, but I'm slowly sort of opening and just candidly talking that humans all have problems, and we can also experience ups and downs, like life is like a roller coaster, but resilient people, stay inspired, hopeful, and engaged in the time of pain. So I think that's the one that I want to inherit to my children, because we never know, and we wouldn't know, what's going to happen in their lives, because that's perhaps like after I die. But still, if they are resilient, and if they have this power of resilience, then they can bounce back to positive mindset and positive situation, then they can change their life situation, and also their future. So I'm just showing that to my children, that I'm doing that in right now. Yeah, even though everything is unstable.
So, Debbie, I think I can make out from the advice that you've given. So, I think communication is the key. We have to be very transparent, honest, and have discussion with our children upfront, rather than them creating some notions, in bits and pieces, whatever information they get from our faces, from a little bit from their environment, media, anywhere. So, they might just create their own perceptions about the world and what is happening. So, it's important as a parent that leave aside the superhero tag and go and have a discussion with your children, make them understand why are we here, what is the situation happening. If we are sailing through some tough times, there is still a hope, there has to be positivity around in the conversation. Thank you, Debbie. So I move to Sue. Sue, you have done, extensive work, with uplifting people, from encouraging them to, live more and fear less, which is your company name too, right? So can you highlight what are the symptoms that shows one is suffering with a mental health issue? What are the symptoms to look out for?
Symptoms. I think that's a very difficult question to answer, to be fair, because as human beings, the very fact that we all have different fingerprints proves that we're unique. And mental health, mental ill health particularly, knows no boundaries. It doesn't care how old we are, what gender we are, what culture we are. And so it's quite difficult. But I think for me, it would be, and if we're talking specifically about children here, but it's also applicable to adults, in fact. But sudden changes in behaviour. I think it was Lynn that mentioned that. If somebody, regardless of their age, was pre-COVID, for instance, quite outgoing as a person, and now suddenly they're very introvert, or they can't be bothered to engage in conversations. They're quite lethargic, where once they were very active. All of these, in and of themselves, are tiny. They don't amount to very much, but if they sort of start to stack up, going back to the vertical theme again, then maybe there's an issue. But I think the thing to remember for me is that children, regardless of their ages, and I am somebody's child, so we are all children as well as parents. Children, if they are old enough to ask a question, then they're old enough for an age stage appropriate response. It's that simple. And it's in knowing the language capabilities of the children that clearly are our own children. We know them very, very well. And it's relating to them in a way that they can see, mom or dad are maybe a little bit worried, but they've got this covered because they know they can't just do this yet. If we apply just that small word, I don't know what it is in Indian or in Korea or in Nigeria, but in English, we call it yet. I can't do that yet. Whatever your applicable is. And children often are happier than they were before. If we can explain the situation to them in a way that makes sense in their world, and their world is inside their head, between their ears, they're much more likely to be accepting of anything that their grown-ups are projecting. So I will say to the grandson, as I mentioned previously, I don't know if you were all on the call, but our 5-year-old autistic grandson lives with us, and he's very matter of fact. He's very, very intellectual, and he is very verbal for an autistic. But I can say to him, you know what? You just need to give me a minute. I can't do that yet. And he's now saying things. Is that because of the virus then? Yeah, sort of. I'm very sad today. And that's all we need to do. But in terms of there are so many symptoms whereby people are crippled by anxiety, by feeling inferior, by living up to a super mum or dad label that exists actually in their own minds, as several of you have articulated here. Let's face it, if we each of us had a dozen children, Lord forbid, if we each of us had a dozen children, we would need a different manual for each and every single one of them in order to cater for their every need in terms of when they like to eat, what they like to eat, what they like to drink, how they are feeling, and leading from the front is vital when it comes to any relationship, but particularly parent to child. When we can mirror a child's belief back to them in a way that they can see that we do so. So, for instance, if they're exhibiting fears about COVID or fears that they might catch the virus, we can, number one, validate that fear, because we would be very foolish to try and tell a child who knows what's going on in the world that actually he's not going to catch it. That's both unrealistic and quite dangerous. However, if we can mirror their belief that, yeah, I understand that you're scared, but you know what? Mommy is too. However, we just can't do this yet. Excuse me, it's all about layering the situation and not taking it just at face value. If a child is exhibiting introverted behaviors, a conversation is the way to go. And that conversation might happen over 2 minutes. It might happen over 20 weeks or anything in between, because piece by piece, it's mirroring the fact to our partners, to our children, to our employers or employees. It's mirroring that empathy. Totally get where you're coming from. Let's discuss, broaden the sense of the ability to talk about it. If we can communicate acceptably with each other on a level that's appropriate to our age and stage, this world would be a lot less fearful, because fear, regardless of our age, fear is no more or less than the absence of a piece of knowledge. Now, sadly, the entire world just doesn't have enough knowledge at the minute.
Okay, so we have talked about certain symptoms, fear, anxiety, some of the things which are there inside our mind and some are visible. So are there any red flags to look out for that which tells us that it is the time for us to actually go out and reach a professional support and help?
In terms of children or in general?
In terms of children.
Okay, in terms of children, repetitive, rigid behaviours for sure. They in this country, every child when the virus first started were taught to sing "Happy Birthday to You, Happy Birthday to You," whilst they wash their hands repeatedly. And there was a time when in our house that became very, 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 very rigid, until George actually understood that not everybody in the world was singing happy birthday to him, and then he lost interest. But the thing is, spotting the signs. If something becomes like the hand washing, for instance, becomes every time there's something to touch, they have to wash their hands or sanitize. Making beds in a particular way. Tidying. If a previously really untidy child suddenly feels the need to bring structure and order to their lives, they will oftentimes start meticulously tidying away. They may exhibit symptoms of an attachment disorder if a parent leaves a room. Even if you live in a very small house or flat and you just go into the next room, suddenly, if they've been exposed to news bulletins, for instance, and they're aware of the fear of death, then suddenly not being able to make eye contact with their adult can be enough to trigger an anxiety of some description. They will wring their hands. Lots of children actually pluck their hair because they can't think of anything to do with their hand. So if hands full of hair, if suddenly the hair starts falling out or little spots of baldness appear and stuff like that, anything at all that is out of the ordinary for them, so repeatedly asking the same question when once would have been enough, and things like that. It's very difficult because each child is different, much as the adults are. But the adults, as adults, we need to be the one to be vigilant.
I'm sure, these inputs might have helped many parents and participants who are listening today and actually are going through it.
Yeah.
Moving on to Lynn. Lynn, I personally know that, you have been through lots of ups and downs in personal life, and now being a mother of a lovely teenager daughter. So how do you personally handle the parenting guilt, which often hits us hard as parents? And especially now in lockdown, it has made our life even more precarious.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So for myself and my daughter, what lockdown, the changes that happened for us is that we together would do a 5K walk with the dog each evening and every morning. And what I found was if I was silent and I just listened to her, especially if it was after her working day had finished, then she would just want to tell me everything that was happening. And I'd find out that way what her troubles were so I could listen to her, give her the support. Other things are in our street, we were raising money and supporting the making of protective like PPE masks and hats and equipment. And she volunteered to bake. And so being creative and actually feeling that you're supporting other people is actually a good way to not be so focused on self in the home, that you feel that you're doing something that's good for the wider community. So I think that has been useful. We have had arguments, and they're never pleasant, but they're over with in no time, because over the years I've brought her up to realise that it's part of life. There are going to be times where there's tensions or something's affecting you, and so you might be snappy or whatever. But I've taught her that you repair the situation. You go and you say, sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's because I'm struggling with this. So what I find is that she'll come to me and say sorry when she's been not so nice, and so it works quite well for us. I think we have quite a good relationship. One of the things, so I've been affected in my income quite substantially. We're called the Forgotten Limited. Any small limited companies in Britain, although you can furlough yourself as an employee, if you're paying yourself a minimum salary, then 80% of not a lot of money. So where the government has supported furloughed people, I don't get that support. So I actually find myself on the raw end of the benefits that are happening in the UK. So my daughter's actually doing an apprenticeship, but she doesn't earn much money, but she's become the main breadwinner in the family. And so I've thanked her for that and allowed her to feel that she's really has risen up and taken responsibility. And so that's a nice thing, and I'm very proud of her. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn. It's so beautiful that, as parents, we go through so much in our life. And, today when we see our kids becoming so responsible and kind of looking after the family, I think it just fills you up. And
I know.
Having goosebumps right now listening to your story. So it's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Because I know COVID has affected everybody, because I don't know anyone who's not going through those waves of emotion where one minute you might feel anxious and panicky, and then the next minute you're fearful, and then the next minute everything's okay. And so everyone's going in those shock waves of the world's changing. And it dawned on me that there was a really good book that I could read to help, which was the one that we did, the not-for-profit book called Success Breakthroughs. And I thought I need to read the book again, because every lady in the book had a personal struggle, and there's the mindset to help, reading good stuff like that, positive things, is what helps you when you're down and you're struggling, is to read other stories of people who are like breaking through and managing to be persistent and maintain, like Debbie was saying, you can't lie about what's really happening with you, but I mean, you do, when you go out there, you do put a front on that everything is fine, and you do have to have that long vision that we're all going to come out of this, and we're going to come out of it better. So that's
Right.
what keeps me going.
Thank you so much, Lane. I think you've just made a very relevant point that, the more we read, the more we keep our eyes open, the more we get to know about, the similar stories, how people are kind of, bouncing back, in their lives, and how they're trying to stay positive. So I think we are able to kind of, bounce back even the same way. So my question to Muna would be, Muna, there is this apprehension, about the future spirals, negative emotions. So how can people stay positive during these unprecedented times? When we just talked about, of course, reading is one thing, getting to know about how you are kind of, coping up with the mechanism, but then what else can we all women, we all men, and children do to stay positive?
I say happiness is a choice. It's a choice at the end of the day. You either choose to be happy or you choose to stay depressed. So I tell people, look, find that thing that you connect to, find that person that you connect with, and sometimes it might not even be your spouse. It might be your mom that always makes you laugh or makes you, makes things okay once you pick the phone to talk to her. Find that me time. It's important to connect with yourself. I watch Netflix and people look at me and they say, you're crazy, Mona. And you just sit and you're watching a movie. I said, because if I'm not watching this movie, I'm on my laptop and I'm working, or I'm parenting, or I'm doing something. So when do I have time for myself? Right? So I create that space where I just lose myself in a series, and I pace myself, okay, just watch 5 episodes of this. And in that moment, I'm just me, I'm just relaxed. I'm just watching all.
You stop yourself after those 5 episodes, because there are 3 more left, right? How do you kind of stop yourself? That's an afternoon.
You try. So what I do is, once I watch for a bit, and as I look at the time, and then I put pressure on myself, like, you need to stay disciplined and get off this couch and go do something, right? But I find that those moments, my daughters have started watching with me, and I find that it becomes it became a family moment, a family ritual. So they'll go grab popcorns or something, lie on the couch or lie on the carpet, and we're watching the series, and they're asking me, Mom, okay, what happened next, and all of that. And you find joy in just doing that, because really, it's the small things that matter. It's not the big things. It's just the small things that you can connect with that brings happiness. And then we must remember to let go of any grudge, of any anger, of anything that makes us unhappy. And like Lynn said, it's important to teach the children how to go back to say sorry. Because when you become an adult, that becomes an important characteristic trait that you must have, to always forgive, let go. Even if the person does not want to say sorry, it's for your own good. You just let it go. Forgive the person and move on, because that's your emotional well-being that you're looking at. Thank you.
Said, Muna, I think what I can make up from your what you have just said is that it's important to be in the moment, spend time with your children, kind of make a little happy space in the house, in the environment that you have, because you as a parent are again the role model. If you want to create that happy space, you need to kind of portray that behavior first, right? If you're depressed all the time, if you're saddened all the time, if you have that stress all the time, I think that kind of, just get transferred onto the children unconsciously.
Just be in the moment.
Yes, just be. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So Debbie, my last question to you would be that, since you have written various books, and your recent book being on parenting, its title is Hygiene Parenting. Am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, hygge parenting.
Hygge
Hygge. That's Danish.
All right. So it has received tremendous response, especially, in these times of despair. I remember, sometime back, I happened to read one of your posts where people have actually written so wonderful that, how this book has helped them in this despair and uncertain times. So what are the key takeaways from your book that can help parents to manage stress and anxiety, in these unprecedented times? Any 3 takeaways that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think that's also go back to communication with our children. And actually, in this time of COVID-19, I think there is a kind of collective epiphany that, we suddenly really appreciate our, routine. And those things that we took it for granted, such as like family, friends, travel, and all those, just normal routines. So, when we realize that we have to really be grateful for our life and all the trivial, these little things, then I think we can stay sort of positive and more grateful. And through this time, we have more time to communicate with our children all of a sudden, because like country like in Korea, I don't know if you guys know about this, but our country is really like studying hard country. Children are really have a lot of pressure to study hard, and they have to enter prestigious university, etc. So you can hardly talk to your children in Korea. They're seldom at home, but all of a sudden we sort of gain the time to be together, and we can talk to each other, because they're the only people that we can talk to, right? So and children feel lonely, and parents also feel lonely because we cannot really commute to our offices. So so we have to just have this epiphany moment to have more communication with our children and have a deep conversation, and so that we can understand each other. So I think that was the only thing that I gained throughout this painful situation. So that will be also quite connected to my book, my parenting book. Yes.
Thank you so much, Debbie. So before we start taking the questions which are coming from the participants all across the globe, I would want all of you to leave us with one word that you want people to remember, that is like their enchanting. Just one word to go through this times. Can we have Muna? See you, Debbie.
I already did say it. Stay in the moment and love yourself. It's very important. Stay in the moment, love yourself.
Yes, Lynn. Please unmute yourself, Lynn.
I love that. Stay in the moment. I would say gratitude, be grateful even though it's a bad time, like appreciate what you do have rather than focus on what you don't have.
Thank you.
Me?
Do you like to? Yes.
Okay. Remember always that regardless of how you feel, everything begins and ends with you.
Deeper. Debbie?
Yeah. It's the same thing. Being grateful is the best solution, whichever situation we are.
Isn't it beautiful that gratitude is the key to all the solutions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ladies, for the lovely session. I will start taking questions, and anybody can just answer. Feel free to answer that. So the first question is from a gentleman. He says that my work before lockdown required me to travel a lot, which I found my way to relax and escape too from the stressful life. I'm not used to with living at home 24/7, and this irritates me often. How can I make mental peace at home? Anybody? Ladies?
Okay, so yeah.
Okay, I would say just picking up on what I said about everything beginning and ending with us, and somebody else, was it you, Luna, that said that everything is a choice. The gentleman concerned can choose at any given point on any given day to choose to be happy, for sure, but also to choose to do something which will take him inside. So if he can't physically distance from his family, then earphones, music, reading a good book, meditation, bit of yoga. It doesn't, and those are sort of quite general. He will know what he likes to do best. If he can't get out to walk or to travel, then he can certainly chunk things down to manageable scale size to do within his own home environment. We can all of us choose to be in the same room yet separate from the people that we live with. The majority of the world do that very, very well, very successfully, all the time. To be fair, but yeah, it's being inventive and going back to what somebody else said earlier. Be creative with the time that you have. People say to me all the time, "Thing is, I've got too much time on my hands these days." Actually, no, you haven't. You've got exactly the same time today, 86,400 seconds, as you had yesterday, as you had 15 years ago, as you'll have in 10 years' time. It's how we manage it that counts.
Right. Thank you. I hope that the gentleman is happy with the answers.
So do I. Please don't hunt me down.
Right. Okay, moving on to another question. It's a question by a stay-at-home mother. She says that when my children used to go to school, I found that time to relax myself and hang out with my friends. But now everyone is at home and I get no self-time. How do I cope up with the situation as it becomes very stressful at times?
Yeah. I read that kind of complaining or those words in many places, and also all the moms group, moms community, and I also feel the same. Like cooking 3 meals a day is, how do you do that, right? So this is really physically tiring and mentally also tiring. I have to think about the new menu every time, and time comes to me so quickly. So I also had a kind of sometimes I had some kind of anger, or sometimes why do I have to do this all the time? Even though I live in a country where the delivery service is really fast and good, but we cannot rely on that, all the time. So there is a certain responsibility and roles that moms have to take care of. So, but still, as I said before, I just thought to myself that, oh, I have 2 children to cook for. If I don't have children, then I don't have to cook. So I have to be grateful for those things that I do have something, and I can cook. Because I'm healthy, still healthy, and I can cook for my children. I can take care of them, and I can see how they're doing an online class. So being grateful gives more relax, and because I'm also actually I'm a working mom, so normally I don't have self time. I mean, time for myself. So very little. So yeah,
I think to add more to it, it's important that we as a family should also have a shared responsibility, right? So that the whole burden should not come on to one person. Even if we have children, it's a beautiful time for us to teach them life skills. least to say, at least pick up your utensils, keep them in the sink properly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Small things. I mean, that really helps us, for rather than us doing everything for our kids and our families, I think it's better we share our responsibilities, right? So
That's fantastic. I actually wanted to add that, boundaries are very important. So even if you're doing everything and like you said, the need to also share responsibilities. However, set boundaries. When it's me time, it's me time. You're not allowed to come and for me to do parenting that period. This is a time for me to rejuvenate so that I can be there for you tomorrow or later in the day. Because if I break down, what happens, right? So parents must learn to set boundaries. With my daughters, once I have my laptop up, they know mommy is working. That's like a silent code. Mommy is working. Since I've been here doing this live, both of them have come. They will come, they'll look at me, the laptop is on, they will go back again. Because they know these are boundaries. Laptop is on, mommy is working, and that's not a time I want to do parenting unless it's urgent. So you find that once you are able to set these boundaries and silent codes, you begin to find time so that you're not stressed out. Parenting, being a mother, is stressful in itself. It's a 24-hour on the call job. You cannot say you're not going to be there, but you have a choice to set these boundaries to say, okay, this is the time for this to happen. This is the time for you to be in bed. Even if it's COVID or lockdown and sleeping patterns have changed, be on your bed, in your room. Make all the noise you want to make there, because I also need time to rejuvenate, to be there for you, and to make sure that everybody stays positive and happy at home. It's important for my well-being as the mother. Thank you.
I'm glad you said that, but, setting boundaries again is an art. It's not very easy for people to actually set boundaries. Many people end up just losing it up at that minute because, it's just those fraction of 5 seconds where you kind of control yourself or you just lose it out. So
Absolutely.
we can have another session where we talk about how parents should set the boundaries. We can take it offline and discuss it further. Yeah. So take up the another question. So here the person says that my child is 13-year-old. He is introvert by nature. We have been trying to make him interactive by participating in school extracurricular programs. But now, due to lockdown, no such opportunities are available and all our efforts are gone in vain. What are the ways in which we can make him improve as it's making him feel more isolated?
I can answer that.
Okay.
Yes, Len.
Well, if they've got the technology for to have a meetup, then contact some parents of other children that he would normally play with and get them to play a kind of game online together where they can all be interactive. So that would be one way of doing that for him.
A friend of mine, a family friend of ours within their own family during lockdown, they're quite scattered across the UK. And once a week they have each of the separate arms of the family have young children who were feeling quite isolated from their cousins and as well as their friends. So they go online every Friday tea time and have an interactive family quiz, like a family fortunes type thing, and the adults sort of adjudicate and moderate, and the kids are sort of answering the questions. They divide themselves into teams, etc., and it just encourages that social interaction. So anything that will connect him with other peers of his age, like to speak upon what Lynn said, would be a really good example if he cannot physically even talk to somebody across a garden fence, for instance. I know lots of people nearby where I live stand 6 feet one side of the garden boundary, and the friend will stand at the other 6 feet their side of the garden boundary, and they have shout conversations. It really annoys the grown-ups, but the kids have fun. And I think they have fun largely because they annoy the grown-ups, to be fair, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, so it's just, again, it comes back to getting creative.
Right. I think it's shade of a family cohort kind of a thing. I think it's beautiful because it's not only kind of, making the children connect in an interactive, in a fun way, but I think it's also adding on to them feeling more responsible. If you're asking them to run a show, handle a quiz amongst your own set of siblings, I think it's kind of giving them leadership, making them feel a bit more responsible, giving an opportunity for them to speak. Yeah. Muna, you were saying
Absolutely.
So I wanted to say that, from what she had said, the child is introverted even before COVID happened, and the lockdown has made it worse, So I would actually, suggest that she ask the child, what do you want to do? Rather than be the one telling the child what to do. And, she can test a lot of things, give creative arts things, paintings, drawings, because I find that sometimes that introverted children are actually silent geniuses that lack expression, right? So she can find out what it is that child is great at doing. She can study him. She might not even have to ask him, but take time, forget your worries about him being introverted and not playing with other children, and just look at this child and actually see this child to understand what it is, who he is or she is, and then start to see how you can provide for things that will make that child come out and have creative expression. Sometimes it's not even about human connection, but about bringing out that that thing that is locked inside him or her, and helping them find expression in it. So it might go deeper than just human connection. That's, I think, what I'm trying to say.
so. It should not be the boss walking in the house all the time. I think you need to connect and let the child open up for himself, right? Okay, so we'll just take the last two questions for the evening. So this question is from a single mother. She says she has lost the job due to her company being shut down. I'm trying to get opportunities to work, but each day is a fight within myself for me. And my stress often comes out onto my children. I feel miserable.
Okay. How many does the lady say how many children she's got?
It's not mentioned, but children, so I'm assuming maybe one.
Okay. It's difficult when you've got, and if the younger the children are, the more difficult I think it is, because they're less inclined to understand. Actually, it's only 3 o'clock in the morning. Go away. I want to go back to sleep. Things like that. But as the children get older, and certainly what I've started doing in since we've all been in the house together, is I set my alarm for 4:30 a.m. every single day. And usually 6 out of 7 days, I actually manage to drag my little self out of bed. And I can be relatively secure that nobody, no pitter patter of tiny little feet are going to come wandering downstairs for at least another 90 minutes. And that is my me time. If I don't get any other me time during the day, that's my me time to read, to watch Netflix, to meditate, stand on my head, do whatever it is that I need to do to help me to find the inner bit of me that we all need to connect with every day, as well as socially with everybody else. But the benefit of that is I also get to go to bed early as well, which is a double whammy, because I get 2 lots of me time then. Once when I'm actually unconscious, and once when I'm consciously doing what I want for myself. So again, it's managing the time more creatively to make it fit, or do something for herself if the children are young enough to have naps in the day. Make most of the time that you've got that you can bend for your own advantage, I would say.
Right. Thank you, Sue. So the last question of the day would be, I have a toddler who was going to play school and now studying through online classes. Initially, we were well adjusted, but now I see he gets often irritated. Doesn't listen to me, have started breaking toys. Do I need to consult a therapist?
He's just a toddler.
Yeah.
He's just a
Glad you said
child.
that.
But you know what, Muna, it's very overwhelming at times, because as a mother, when you are having multiple responsibilities, you are doing zillions of chores, you really lose it at times, isn't it? So I think it's a
Absolutely.
very thin boundary line.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And what I'm saying is, I'm trying to imagine a toddler sitting in front of a laptop watching, taking a class. It's never possible. Or her to stay there for the length of time required. That is an expressive time for children to roam around and play and just be themselves, right? So if a child is breaking toys and all of that, that means they're frustrated, and you need to try and create an enabling environment for them to run around. That is the nature calls at that. That is their period to just be, pardon the word, a nuisance around the house. So you need to mentally, be ready to handle that particular situation, and to give them space within the house to be themselves while you also want them to be organized and disciplined, which is now impossible at that age.
I think the thing to remember is their attention span doesn't get, once they reach secondary school, so in this country that would be age 11 to 16, their attention span is gone after roughly 7 minutes. So a teacher in England would comprise a 50-minute lesson and switch the learning focus at least 5 times within that lesson. So if the toddler, whatever age they are, their age appropriate attention span time is the thing that she needs to be looking at. If his attention span is a couple of minutes, that's all you've got. That's it. That's your window of opportunity for him to learn from A to B to C one day. It doesn't matter what it is. It's his attention span that's beyond his control. That's completely age appropriate. So you have to be careful not to try and make Einstein before he's create an Einstein, before he's at an age where he can concentrate long enough to absorb the knowledge. But don't forget, children are learning from the second they are born, the second they open their eyes, every single day. Everything that we learn in our lives, 90% of what we learn, we've learned before the age of 6 or 7. Everything else is just an extra layer of knowledge. He or she is learning all the time, even if all he appears to be doing is playing. He's learning.
So in this case, when the mother is complaining that the child is not listening to me and breaking toys, it could be an attention-seeking activity also.
Absolutely.
We have a struggle as well. Maybe the mother is and the father is so preoccupied the whole day through. Maybe the mother, even if you're spending time, but then you're always fiddling with the gadgets. You're on sending those emails. Maybe cooking is on your mind. So you need to, I think, give a 15 to 20 minutes of undivided attention to your child each day, wherein that email can wait, that food can wait, that phone call can wait to be answered. So I think giving undivided attention is also very, very important. So I think perhaps
yeah.
help them out.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Anybody saying something?
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's a tendency as well with your children, because you want them to be well behaved, and so when they do something that seems to be naughty, quite often it isn't. And I remember this one occasion, my daughter was 4 years old, and as I came back to the house, my father, her grandfather, was telling her off, and I said, what's going on? And he said, well, look what she's done. So there was, the garage door had sand stuck, plastered. She'd totally pebble dashed the whole of the garage by chucking sand at the garage. And I said to her, don't tell her off. She's done it for a reason. We just need to ask her what the reason is. And when I asked her, she said, it made a pretty pattern, so I wanted to do it more, Mummy. So she wasn't being naughty, but he was telling her off. And I'm just glad I caught that incident at the time, so that I could find out what was really going on.
That kids rarely do anything without a reason. Even if we have no clue what their reason is, there will be a reason, and it's just unpicking it, isn't it? And being there in that moment again to ask the question.
Yeah.
So you've experienced not just as a mother, but even as a grandmother now. So kids are always exploring. Everything is new for them.
Absolutely. Our eldest child is 43. Our youngest grandchild is 4. So I've got a wealth of experience. But that aside, it's every single one of them is different. One of our children, who shall remain nameless, not that he'll ever watch this, and that's a clue because we've only got one him. He once was playing at his friend's house. There were 3, 4, and the mother had just recently painted the radiator, the central heating radiator, which had indents in it. And the boys between them decided they didn't like them all white, so they coloured the dints in the colours of the rainbow, perfectly, red and yellow and pink and green all the way across. And when Mum, my concern was where she'd been for that length of time, to be fair. But when she came back, she went absolutely mad, and all I could see was a beautiful rainbow. The boys decided white was boring, and they said the same. Don't like the white; it's boring. We wanted to make a rainbow. There's always a reason behind even the naughtiest of behaviours.
Thank you so much, lovely ladies. I thoroughly enjoyed conversing with each one of you, and I'm sure our participants have benefited in terms of understanding how we are all in this together. It is not just you; it's all of us. So to sum up our discussion today, just last 2 cents that I would like to say to everyone is that you may experience that increased stress, due to this pandemic. Fear and anxiety may be overwhelming and cause strong emotions in adults and children as well. But coping with stress in a healthy way will make you and the people that you care about and your community also stronger. Hope is what keeps us going. So get hope from your past resilience. Know that you will get through this. It's not going to be here forever. You have got this through so many times in the past because of your strength, and you will conquer this as well. You made it through, and you're stronger because of it. Thank you so much. Wish you all a lovely and
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Thank you, Jasmine.
thank you.
Jasmine.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was really good.
You're
Thank all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can log out. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Lovely evening ahead.
lambat voy a estar, please.